selfishness and altruism. A species evolves to increase the fitness of its population by passing on as many beneficial genes as possible to the entire population, rather than to a few selected individuals. As a result, the entire population evolves in a stable direction, following a relatively consistent strategy. However, it is difficult to explain why organisms would develop two opposite strategies, selfishness and altruism, which appear to contradict the law of survival of the fittest. Self-evident selfishness. All of us would surely acknowledge having a selfish nature within us. Nevertheless, due to diverse views on the comprehension of selfishness, individuals may rationalize their behavior to diminish their moral culpability or to evade portraying moral inadequacies to others. Regardless, it is evident that selfishness emanates from genes. Richard Dawkins is the author of the famous popular science book, The Selfish Gene. From the point of view of natural selection over a long period of time, the main idea of the book is that only those genes will survive that are capable of self-preservation and self-reproduction. To put it differently, genes that are selfish survive since one of the most notable features of successful genes is their unwavering selfishness. Since organisms carry genes, all their traits are correlated to genes, and anything subject to natural selection will be self-centered. Since humans are a product of natural selection over an extended duration, it is rational to assume that we are naturally born self-centered. It is important to note, however, that Dawkins' concept of genetic selfishness differs significantly from human moral selfishness, which highlights the detrimental effects of self-centeredness. To put it another way, moral selfishness is when a person is intentionally selfish with the goal of harming the relationships of others, whereas genetic selfishness is a natural disposition that does not necessarily lead to evil. In economics, it is widely recognized that an invisible hand guides individuals to pursue their selfish objectives and related activities. However, it leads to a division of labor and cooperation, and boasts more benefits for people with greater needs, serving as a prime example of how self-interest ultimately produces altruistic outcomes. Nonetheless, it remains a mystery why we need moral standards to control selfish behavior, despite acknowledging that all organisms recognize selfishness as a product of the original gene, which all creatures would acknowledge if there were means to communicate with them. What is the need for distinguishing between genetic selfishness and moral selfishness? Why doesn't the concept of the invisible hand apply to all human activities in the same way it does in the economic field? The domestication of plants and animals by humans is often driven by mutual benefit and self-interest. For instance, when domesticating pigs, humans provide shelter, food, and protection, which leads to a stable food source, plant nutrients, and other benefits for humans. These domesticated pigs repay humans by providing them the energy contained in their bodies for survival and reproduction. Therefore, selfishness in domestication benefits not only humans, but also domesticated animals. Although the act of slaughtering domesticated pigs may seem cruel to humans, almost no one considers imposing moral restraint or feels moral guilt, as they seem to take it for granted. Could it be that certain selfish behaviors among humans differ from those involved in the interaction between humans and domestic pigs? Selfishness should typically encompass individual self-interest as well as self-interest based on the collective and long-term interests of the population, which is to increase population size and improve survival prospects. Given that humans and other creatures share a common ancestor, the selfish genes of any species for survival and reproduction cannot be overlooked during the transmission process, otherwise they would have been eliminated by nature. Thus, every organism ought to be selflessly accountable for the flourishing and propagation of their respective populations. In general, cooperation, peaceful coexistence, and territorial non-aggression among members of the same species are the dominant patterns for the survival and development of a population. Members do not typically see each other as a food source or a threat, and this pattern is only displaced in rare extreme cases. When performing subtraction operations, There is almost never a situation where there is only a single or just a few individuals of a species. In general, when we consider selfishness in a broad sense, it appears to be an accurate reflection of genetic selfishness, where the selfishness is at the population level rather than at the individual level. Dawkins believes that what is referred to as altruism in biological conspecifics is merely another form of selfishness. As an interesting study has shown, the act of helping a fellow creature is also common in chimpanzees, rats, and fish. In the experiment, a mouse was placed in a metal cage, and then another mouse attempted to open the cage by any means possible to rescue it. However, if a rat and its favorite chocolate were placed in two cages, the other rat, which acted as the rescuer, would not be selfish and abandon its companion. Instead, the rescuer rat would open both cages at nearly equal rates and then share 30% of the chocolate with its companion. In a broader sense, kin selection theory is also self-centered. Suicidal altruism, displayed by insects such as ants and bees, are attributed to their high genetic similarity with their siblings. It is not surprising that such insects can exhibit apparently isolated acts of altruism while still being collectively self-interested. The employment of moral codes to counteract personal egocentricity may also relate to self-centeredness in the broader context. The human psyche and behavior are very intricate, resulting in potential motivation and damage brought about by self-centeredness to be more difficult to anticipate than those in other animals. To prevent mutual harm among humans and safeguard the interests of the species, people employ moral standards as the first line of defense between individuals. The society views any violation of this defense line negatively, assigns blame, and applies pressure on the perpetrator. Over time, self-interested individuals begin to feel guilty and scared of facing cold treatment, isolation, or even abandonment by the community. Hence, they eventually accept moral constraints placed on them. However, there exist contradictions in broad selfishness which involves distinguishing between individual and group selfishness and deciding how to handle conflicts. An instance of such a contradiction arises when a rat rescues a companion that may be born with a genetic defect, resulting in population selfishness being violated. This rescue action may even hinder reproduction. In similar situations where there is extreme starvation or harsh survival conditions, how should the rat assess and determine whether to perform a rescue? Maybe the rescuer might die of starvation, or the likelihood of starvation will rise drastically, or maybe both will be fortunate enough to survive. If we were in such a predicament, what choice would we make between self-interest and the interest of the herd? Even humans are unable to answer that question, let alone rats. Selfishness, in the broad sense, should not be compatible with the nature of biological evolution. However, narrow individualistic selfishness does. Nevertheless, biological evolution has witnessed not only the emergence of selfish purposes and strategies, but also some seemingly incredible and genuinely altruistic behaviors. Is this behavior another purpose or strategy of evolution? Implicit meanings of altruism. Apart from the moral limitations on selfish behavior, there is also ethical promotion of truly altruistic actions, such as heroic or courageous conduct. For example, sacrificing your life to protect a child from a mob, to fight for the betterment of your country, or to save a foreigner are all genuinely selfless acts for individuals. The animal kingdom exhibits similar truly altruistic behaviors. For instance, groups of elephants and lions collaborate to safeguard their offspring, while sardines and mackerel also congregate when threatened by predators to scare them away and protect their species. In schools of fish, when the fish in the outer layer swim to the center of the school to avoid being the first to be preyed on and to protect themselves, they sometimes inadvertently collide with each other, resulting in a chaotic situation. If the neat and tidy spherical formation is disrupted, it can lead to eating most of the school of fish, which has unimaginable consequences. However, the fish in the outer layers, which are the most dangerous, follow the conservation laws of the population. This altruistic behavior offers the maximum safety for the fish population, and enables the whole population to adapt to the crisis-ridden ocean. Although animals lack clear concepts of population or species like humans and do not know about population fitness, they can still act based on instinct or mutual protection laws. Even when an individual is in a hazardous situation, there is no action or sign of fear. Altruistic behavior, although the most soul-stirring of all species, appears to have little impact on the fitness of a population. Individuals who go out of their way to save others do not solely do it to increase the fitness of a population. During the Florida school shooting in 2018, Peter Wong chose to stay behind and held the door open for other students to escape, although he could have left the scene alone. Tragically, he was shot and killed. Altruistic acts of self-sacrifice to save others have occurred throughout human history and appear to provide no biological benefits to the individual or the species. Despite this, they fearlessly confronted grave danger, seemingly without taking into account their instinctive desire to survive. Their heroic behavior is not biologically motivated, nor due to an altruistic gene that greatly differs from that of ordinary humans. What motivates them to make such perilous decisions and act at any cost? Dawkins has this bold idea: the distinguishing feature of successful genes is their selfishness. Some genes will implement a curvilinear strategy to quickly expand their territory. They will display constrained altruism under specific conditions to achieve long-term benefits. Nevertheless, these genes are inherently selfish and desire only to reproduce as fast as possible to surpass other genes. Otherwise, individuals may eventually be submerged in the evolutionary tide. Dawkins argues that genes prioritize their own survival and replication targets over aiding others or risking their own survival. Altruism, according to Dawkins, is a minimal gene behavior that ensures their safety. The question remains whether the egoistic curve strategy accurately explains altruism. A new perspective on the origins of courage may yield unexpected insights. Based on the previous hypothesis of two fundamental life needs, survival for reproduction and strong bonding could be pivotal. Survival for reproduction is considered the primary need, followed by the need for strong bonding with specific individuals. Is it possible for this to reverse, making strong bonding the primary need in certain situations? In cases we've examined, genuine acts of altruism in humans are usually carried out within intimate, highly connected relationships, like those found in families, friendships, and romantic partnerships. Suppose an individual believes that the worth of a strong connection is critical to him or her. In this scenario, individuals may incur substantial risks in upholding a strong connection if the people with whom they share this important bond are under significant danger. An individual with average intellect who believes someone significant holds a vital place in their life will appreciate that personal connection and willingly pay a significant price to sustain it. In a strong personal bond, after making significant contributions to the other person, the taker's intense guilt often motivates them to take the necessary risks to save the giver or help the giver in need. Many of the world's heroic stories are likely related to the urge created by strong personal bonds. Examples include people like Peter Wong mentioned above, or the men who saved Hemingway's life during the war. All these stories share the same non-biological reasoning. Ernest Hemingway, an acclaimed American novelist, suffered severe injuries caused by a bomb in World War I. Yet he persevered to aid his comrades and had to recline in an automobile because of his bodily harm. His colleagues valiantly faced the flames to transfer him to the hospital, with one of them even shielding him with his own body to obstruct the shrapnel. It was this type of altruistic and benevolent conduct that inadvertently fostered the great author. Certainly, altruistic and benevolent actions toward strangers can also transpire. Some individuals, including firefighters and soldiers, are required to undertake rescue missions that put their lives at risk, even for strangers. In the feature film Saving Private Ryan, all of the 4 Ryan brothers who fought on the front lines, barring the youngest one, Ryan, were killed in action. A team of 8 men is deployed into the battlefield on humanitarian grounds to find Private Ryan and safely extract him. To fulfill the rescue mission, the team bore a heavy cost, sacrificing 6 of their members to secure the only surviving bloodline in the Ryan family. However, the mission was of such a nature that it demanded acceptance of both psychological and human challenges and risks. These examples demonstrate that it is possible to engage in completely altruistic behavior for a specific reason without being influenced by strong personal connections. Doesn't the act of sacrificing oneself to save others relate to spiritual, moral, religious, or faith aspects? If this is indeed the case, why do these aspects not appear to be directly related to building strong connections? Further examination may reveal a hint of association. Heroes have been admired and worshipped since ancient times. Most people have had heroic dreams since childhood, which explains why heroic literature, movies, and even comics have become popular worldwide over the years. The heroic dream reflects not only a sense of justice and courage, but also the desire for recognition, admiration, and support in the pursuit of punishing evil and promoting good. The connection with others that the heroic dream brings is its fundamental essence. The heroic dream is an intangible force that pertains to the spiritual plane, yet it is deeply interconnected with social relationships. Without enough individuals fascinated by the values embodied by heroic deeds, even those with a keen sense of justice might not be sufficiently motivated to risk their lives for strangers. It is true that religious beliefs have a positive effect on altruistic behavior. However, this phenomenon can be explained under a different logic that is described in further detail in the following chapters of this book.